Let's talk about spending plans. Just like with other topics, the first thing that we need to discuss is the purpose. The purpose of a spending plan is to give us a budget that lets us take control of our finances and accomplish our goals. It's kind of like that old adage that says if you don't know where you're going, then you'll never know if you got there. And so that's the purpose of goals. And then the spending plan is kind of like a roadmap. So the goal is the destination, and the spending plan is the roadmap to help us get there. And so that's the purpose of the spending plan, to give us a map, to give us a tool to help us reach our financial goals. And one way to think about all of this, how do budgets and goals fit together, is thinking about how you relate all of this to a client. And so the first thing that you might want to talk to them about is their values, because sometimes it's hard to jump right into goal setting without having some sense for your values and then kind of relating those values to money. So the first step is identifying your client's values and then relating those values to goals. And then kind of backing up from those goals to create a budget that would help your client realize those goals. And then from that budget, ultimately, you want to help your client achieve financial security. And so that's the relationship between values, goals, budgets, and financial security. And so what we're talking about in this module is the budget. And so that diagram helps to put it all into perspective and to see how budgets relate to goals and why they're important in the big picture. And just jumping right into a budget from scratch can be a little bit difficult. And so when you're working with a client and you use this model, it's a good starting point also to help the client put things into perspective. And then you can get into conversations about things like wants versus needs. Because once you've identified values and goals, then the wants and the needs conversation kind of fits nicely into that, because when you're looking at one particular expenditure, like, I don't know, a new pair of shoes, it's a lot easier to figure out if that new pair of shoes is a want or a need when the client has already identified their goals. And so you can kind of compare that expenditure to their ultimate destination and figure out, is this purchase going to help you reach your goal, or is it going to delay you? Meaning, is it a pair of shoes, or is it an expenditure that is needed for some particular destination or to further your interest in a particular area? Or is it just an expense that's going to cost money that you could have used elsewhere that was going to get you closer to where you really want to be? So that's why we budget. That's kind of the big picture idea of what's going on here. So now let's talk about different methods for budgeting. And so this is kind of one of those things where there's no one way to do it, and the right way is the way that works best for your client. And what we like to do then is just give you a lot of options that you can use with your client, and you find the one that works best for them. So there may be a method that you like best, there may be a method that your client likes best, but this is just one of those areas where we like to put as many tools in your toolbox as possible so that you have options when you're working with clients. And since we're in this age of technology, several of these budgeting methods are technology related. So there are a lot of different smartphone apps or computer programs that you can use for budgeting, and they all have their various strengths and weaknesses. For example, there's one called Mint, or the website is mint.com, and a lot of these, remember, are going to connect to your client's bank account, and that's how they gather information to help your client keep track of their expenses. And so when we're looking at these apps, a lot of them are focused on tracking expenses. So there's mint.com, there's sometimes it's abbreviated YNAB, or You Need a Budget. There's one called Home Budget. And so again, I'm just kind of line listing different technology options for budgeting. Another one is BUDGT, without the E, is another choice for, or potential choice for budgeting. And so these are all smartphone apps. So if you've got someone who's fairly technologically savvy, the benefit of having this one of these apps on your phone is that you've got easy access. And so, for example, if you're at the cash register or the point of sale and you're not sure, or your client isn't sure if they can really afford a particular purchase, or if there's enough money left in their budget, they can look at one of these apps and quickly see what their spending is in that category and figure out if it's this expenditure makes sense at this particular time. Let's take a break here, and we'll come back with a few more budgeting methods that you might want to consider.